What's up, everybody? It's Keefy from Ghost Cult Magazine, ghostcultman.com, and I'm here with Jarle from Vried, and we are here at Last Rites Tattoo Gallery and Theater in New York City. How are you doing, man?
Good. Great to finally be here back in New York again.
Yes. Welcome back to New York City. It's been 6 years since the band has been here. I don't know if you were here for leisure before that, but it is going to be really exciting to have you guys on tour with Kalmah next month. It's a very exciting time for us.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We just end of 2018 we did a big European tour with Kalmah, and now we're heading to the States. It's a good package. We enjoy hanging out with those guys. We have toured Japan previously together, and now we're heading for the States.
Amazing, great band, and a lot of fun live. Great bunch of guys. And again, wonderful new record by you guys, Lifehunger, out on Season of Mist right now. Dropped in September. Great record. Seems like, for 15 years, you guys have been really remarkably prolific in a genre where it's not so easy to just turn over high quality records all the time. So I kind of wanted to start our chat by talking about your songwriting. Do you guys just work on ideas all the time? Is there a plan, or has it just happened to work out that way that you have so much music and 8 records in 15 years, basically?
Well, I think that's basically, I just try to write music and lyrics all the time. I don't just think about now I have to sit down and write a new song or a new riff or a new album. I just like to produce, and of course there are periods, months that I don't write anything at all. Then there can be weeks when I write a lot of songs, so I think that if you stop completely, and say, now I'm going to touring, then I go back in a couple of years to write albums, I think, for me, it feels like maybe you're losing something, and for me, it's the songwriter process that's the most important thing of what I do. I like to sit around, create new ideas and see how they evolve. And for me, I think that's, to kind of keep this stability is what is the essence of my band.
Indeed. And you've definitely done that, especially you've had the lineup fairly secure, only one lineup change in many years, which is unusual for most bands, which is great. I think, it says a lot about you guys. Focus. I think one of the biggest problems and one of the more underrated things about having a band is that you can have extremely talented people, but they also need to be all on the same page for business, to be able to get along. All these things are a consideration.
Absolutely. And I think, we've been fortunate to play together all our lives, more or less. And, and the vocalist is actually my cousin, so we've known each other, of course, all our lives. And the drummer, he grew up 100 meters from my house. We've been hanging out all our lives together. And so immediately when we start working on a new song, I don't need to explain how I want the drums, It's like something a connection that you built for so many years, And if I want to change, it takes me just one word and one mumbling, one reaction is, I know what you mean. And that kind of feeling is something that you can't recreate. So the chemistry we have, I think that's something I appreciate more and more. Of course, we've had fights and our indifferences over the years, but mostly the older we get, we appreciate that we're lucky enough to stay in the same band together.
Awesome. And I definitely appreciate that family members and, close friends and long relationships, each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
In a way, which is kind of funny. But one thing about Lifehunger that really jumped out to me, I rarely quote our writers and their reviews when I talk to an artist, but I have to quote this one. Shout out to Chris Tipple from our UK crew who reviewed the album, and he said, just when you think that black metal or extreme metal can be boring or very typical, an album comes along that is 100% not typical and very unexpected in a lot of ways, to paraphrase and not exactly say what he wrote. But I like the fact that there's like a journey through the albums, not just song by song, but the entire album has dynamics and a real ebb and flow and a real beauty in some of the parts that's unexpected, not unexpected from you, but just unexpected places and things. And I wanted to talk about kind of songwriting and ask you about kind of the, sort of the creating a journey for the listener, not just a song and a song and a song, but an entire feel over a whole album.
Well, mostly this is what I want to create for myself. I like to have an album that tells a story that has something unique. And as you say, I've had this kind of ups and downs, and the more mellow moments and the more intense, hard moments of an album. And when I started out, I have a picture in my head of how I want this album to be, but then again, it changes a lot in the process of this. And but I think it's important. That's always been the meaning for our music, not to create a black metal album, heavy or thrash album. I don't care about these things. I think that's, for me, we've been put into kind of a black metal kind of box, and that's fine, because it all started with inspirations of bands like Dark Throne and Burzum and Emperor and these kind of bands, and it still sticks, and that's kind of a bit of our sound and where we kind of maybe have our basic identity. But then again, I always loved the 70s rock music. I've been the 80s thrash and that kind of stuff. That came to me earlier than the black metal stuff, and then as I grow older, it's coming more and more back to me. So listening to everything from Jethro Tull to the more of the prog stuff like that, and to bands like, of course, Kiss, Alice Cooper, and these kind of bands. I think that kind of reflects very much in our music.
I definitely heard moments and picked up, bits and pieces, motifs of prog and some real classic heavy metal. There's some great, just straight up heavy metal riffs and some cowbell.
Always cowbell.
Gotta have the cowbell, which is really well done. And adds a lot of character, I think, to the music. And you're right; it's unfair to, obviously long history in and out of the band. It's unfair to just sort of say black metal as a catch-all. But I think associations stick, unfortunately or fortunately. Yeah. There's no shame in that.
Absolutely.
You've made a lot of great music, and we'll talk about the anniversary of Craft is this year also. So I wanted to talk about that, but. It's okay. You can grow. Fans can also allow you to grow. It's tough. I think fans get very attached to, the first thing they hear from you, and they love that, and they want you to stay in that box.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that the same with many bands, but I don't think that you don't have to have a lifelong love relationship to band. It's allowed to dislike and to hate and to not understand or want to keep the old stuff or fall in love with the new stuff. I think that's what makes it interesting. It's like, if you just follow a band for the sake of following a band, it becomes more like following a soccer team or whatever. I think that, and of course I have some bands that I do that. I try to, well, I can't understand why are you doing this, but why in the fuck can't you just stay the way you did? But then again, that's the fun of it. I think it's interesting to see that bands changes and dare to develop from nature. And if you see many of the Scandinavian or Norwegian bands that emerge from the more, as to say, black or death metal scene, you see many of them have developed into so many different directions, everything from Mayhem, Satyricon to Enslaved. It sounds very different today from when they started out.
That is true. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's really interesting. I'm sure our fans in Finland and Sweden and even Germany will disagree, but I really feel like Norway is almost the capital of metal. I know the other countries will claim it, especially Finland and Helsinki love to claim that they're the capital of metal, and they very well may be. Great bands come from all those places. But I really feel like both then and now, Norway is so vital to the world metal scene. And it's a relatively small country. So I was going to add, between just the bands themselves, the music scene, of course, Inferno, tons of rock, which you're a part of, and we'll talk about. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Norway just became this epicenter for metal?
Well, as you say, I think all these countries have really strong, and maybe like Finland or Sweden have stronger commercial scenes within the metal. But there's something unique have been about Norwegian bands, and I think it's actually rooted in the kind of stubborn will to do what you want. So it's kind of all kind of based back to a Nietzsche philosophy. It's like people. It's more important for a lot of these songwriters to create something unique, something they can stand for, than to actually satisfy their environments around them. And this is not a gimmick. This is not an image. There's so many strong songwriters from Norway, and I kind of think that they back each other up to a certain extent, and then also it's just it's something strange there.
Something good in the water, maybe.
Yeah.
But it could also be, a lot of other factors that we could talk about. But I've always been fascinated by sort of geography and why bands from California like the Beach Boys are happy and why Black Sabbath comes from Birmingham. So, and the same with Norway and other places. So great stuff. I definitely wanted to also talk, just sort of out of curiosity, obviously you have a long history. Your previous band and your current band, a long association with the scene there. I was wondering if you had any interest in the Lords of Chaos movie, and if you had any thoughts on that. I have my own thoughts on that. But did you read the book? Are you interested in the film at all, or not for you?
I read the book and I thought it was pretty much crap, to be honest. And with the movie, I haven't seen it yet. Of course, it's hard to not hear what people talk about it. You know, I'm going to check it out on some time. But for me, it's like, I think that's without having seen it, but on just basis of what I've heard, I think that people just have taken it for what it is. It's a movie inspired by events. If you think it's like a real story biography of what really happened, I don't think so at all. You know, I think it's just like something you can go into the cinemas and, you know, have an hour and a half, get your popcorns and your phone and go out again. You know, it's nothing. I wouldn't put any much more to it than to that.
Right. And it's not the thing about these music biopics, which I guess are becoming very popular now, thanks to the Queen movie, which I do love, even though it's got some issues. I thought I loved it overall. These are not documentaries. They're not facts. It's a story based on real events that may or may not have happened. And in the case of Lords of Chaos, some truth.
Then again, of course, and you can't have the people themselves that were in the scene making a movie. That would not, or even make the right storytelling, because they would be biased by their own story and how. So I think, you know, you will see, as you say, with the Queen movie, with the Dirt movie, and there's another movie coming out now with it's more of a documentary about the trash area and stuff like that. You know, so a lot of movies, and I heard they started on a David Bowie movie, you know, and stuff like that. In general, I think it's a good thing, because it makes people aware of, musical events, and maybe get interested in how these bands were and their story, you know. And I remember myself when I saw the Doors movie, when that came out, you know, and that, of course, I've heard songs about Doors, but I wasn't really into them. And then when I was like 17 or 18 years old and saw this movie, it was like, wow, open up a new universe. And, you know, hopefully some of these movies can do that.
It'd be pretty cool. But it must be very surreal because that, you know, obviously these characters and these people who are, you know, you may know some and knew some of them and, you know, who are with us and not with us anymore. But, you know, definitely it might be a little surreal and weird, because this musical scene is closely associated with the country. And obviously some of these events are, you know, like burned into our minds, things that happened. And so, yeah, very interesting times. And I generally, these movies are a good thing. I agree with you. I definitely wanted to talk, as I mentioned, I know you work a lot with band promotions and tours, and of course, booking the fantastic Tons of Rock, Metric System people, Tons of Rock, and tremendous festival, huge lineup this year. Kiss, Def Leppard, Slipknot, Farewell Slayer show, Ever in the Nation, Dream Theater on their brand new album. So I wanted to ask you, one, what were the things that you learned being in a band that helped you with being a promoter and a festival booker, first of all?
Well, I think that you need to try to treat bands quite well when they come. They come to do a show, you know, they need to have their, you know, get their place to relax before they play, to get the food, to get the drinks, you know, to try and have the setup as good as possible for them to do a good performance, you know. Understand? There are some basic needs that every band needs, you know, to do a really good show, and we try to put that in place. Then again, I also see how ridiculously band can treat you, you know, and I guess, you know, that's interesting as well, being on the other side of the fence and seeing how, you know, bands come with totally unreasonable demands for doing a show, you know. So I think being on both sides here is very, very interesting, you know. But for me, it's the main thing is that when you organize something, be it a show or a festival, you do it because of the band. So you have to respect their wishes, and what ultimately you want to create a kick-ass show that the audience enjoy, and then the band needs to have it good on stage.
Awesome. And in terms of the big festival, how long in advance do you have to plan this? I mean, we're talking about some major bands and things like, I know the Slayer tour was in the works for a long, long time. So what kind of planning goes into play to book these bands?
We start, you know, the festival is now the last weekend of June for 2019, but we already started to, in talks or booking bands now for 2020, you know, so it's like a year and a half in advance before you actually, the festival takes place when it starts. And But that's one aspect of it, you know, setting up the bands and the billing and stuff like that. Then it's all the organization of the whole festival, you know. For me, I love working with it, but it's crazy. It's crazy. You kind of build this big city and for 3 days and you tear it apart again. And then you start again next year. But, you know, festivals, that's something I love, you know. I think it's, I love them, organize them, and I love to play them, you know. Everything from the small, intimate festivals where you have a dedicated crowd that love your band to the big ones when you can see everything from Kiss, Slayer to Mayhem or whatever.
Mayhem is also on Tons of Rock. That's pretty amazing. That lineup is insane. I'm sure we'll link it in the interview, but it is just insane to look at the poster. I feel like America, we're finally starting to get, we're not quite there yet, but we're starting to get kind of European style festivals in America. So I feel a little lucky that we're still in this time where we're getting these opportunities, because you guys have had it really great for a long time. We've been jealous. So
yeah, this is a fantastic thing, you know. When and as a band, I remember the first time we played at Wacken, you know, the biggest festival you can ever imagine. And we played, the first time we played in a small tent, you know, which was small at the time, with 4,000 people, and it was packed, you know. And then we came back a couple of years later. We got an opening spot. We had to play in the morning at 11 o'clock, but it was on the main stage, and it felt like we did the sound check and see this empty field. I feel like, oh, this is going to be horrible. And then they open the gates and it's flooding in 10, 20,000 people. It's surreal feeling. And, you know, I think these festivals has been so important to build a strong, healthy metal scene in Europe. And hopefully we can see more of this in the States.
Awesome. I would love to see that. So as we wind down, again, we have the tour coming up with Kalmah, very exciting time. We'll be there. And, what else do you guys have going on that you can talk about? Obviously, the record, we're still working on the current record.
Yeah, basically now it's been touring, you know, trying to take territory after territory. And now we're doing America. Then we're going to Mexico for the first time after this tour, straight over to a big festival there. Some summer festivals coming up. And hopefully we can tour more in Europe and America again during autumn and winter. And then again, we also try to get Japan in. We've been touring there for the last albums, which is great. Fantastic to play in Japan. And so I guess more touring for the year now, and then go in studio again, I hope.
We hope so too. Jarle from Vried, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Lifehunger is the record out now on Season of Mist. Thank you so much for spending some time with Ghost Cult. We're out.